Well, when they first got together as a band, they didn't know how to play their instruments, and they did things to kind of camouflage that. Darby would smear peanut butter all over him. He'd dive through broken glass. He'd break glasses on his head. And eventually they learned how to play.
Before Disney got their grubby, greedy little corporate hands all over the Sex Pistols story, first, the Germs story was dragged through the proverbial capitalistic mud. Both biopics took full advantage of fallen members of each respective band and just capitalized off their legacy. This effectively took the voice away from the history makers of the bands. The Sex Pistols story was ruined over 6 episodes on FX in 2022, but the Germs story was first ruined in cinematic glory in 2007 in a full-length feature film. Hey ladies, how's it going? Dan Frampton here, and I just watched the Germs biopic, What We Do Is Secret, and it wasn't good. In fact, it was legacy-destroying garbage that had no right to see the light of day. You see, the Germs are great. They're a foundational band for the genre of hardcore punk, and their charismatic frontman Darby Crash was an eclectic, electric, self-destructive cult of personality. The film really should have been a dark and gritty HBO type thing, but in fact it wasn't that. It was just some Hollywood bullshit of like some tragic tale. It was highly diluted and just pandered to the lowest common denominator. The film wastes no time and gives us a huge spoonful of cringe right off the bat.
Everything works in circles. Like sometimes you're doing something, and a year later, you're back at the same point.
You just have to know about his questionable politics right away.
Now, somebody said you're fascists?
Yeah, we're fascists, but we're not Nazis. And there's a difference, you know.
This scene has Shane West overacting his face off to be a clear, direct, well-spoken orator, when historical archives really show Darby Crash as either playful or funny, or sullen and downtrodden. But no matter where he was on that scale, he was surely intoxicated to some degree.
None of it's going to work. That's why you have to throw it all away and start over.
I have no idea why the creative direction was to portray Darby Crash as some sort of cult leader, especially considering the fact that his band members were so close to the project.
Without overthrowing the government all at once. I mean, you can work from the inside and slowly take over and then throw it all away.
In this pseudo-political persona, they have him going on about not being political.
I just think it's stupid to relate performing to politics, because it's never been political to me.
Drawing direct comparison to political bands and how that's not their style.
And there's all these bands that came out and said we have to be political, like the Sex Pistols, and that's not what we did.
And in the same breath, he hits us with some hot and steamy fascist political rhetoric.
We've tried every form of government, but the only one that'll work is a complete fascist state. But you have to have the right person to lead it.
This fake cult leader type charisma was not the kind of charisma that Darby possessed. But I do believe he would have answered this same question the same way in 1979, however the tone would be more trolly.
So, who would be your ideal fascist leader?
Me?
This video isn't gonna focus on that horrible excuse for cinema. We'll rather take a closer look at the 1981 documentary by Penelope Spheris called The Decline of Western Civilization. It shows Darby Crash and his real-life surroundings months before the tragic conclusion of his 5-year plan. That 5-year plan would be to become a legend and then to ultimately unalive himself. I think that his egomaniacal brain saw that as some way of like controlling his narrative, but with today's understanding of mental health, it's clear to see the man was just sick. The Germs had a reputation for having kind of rough shows that would turn into riots, so club owners weren't really hyped to book them.
Why don't the club owners hire the Germs anymore?
We do get shows occasionally, but it is getting harder. I think there's a lot of bands now, and when we were first doing it, there weren't that many bands, and a lot of the new bands are just more cooperative as far as doing a sedate, safe stage show. There's no threat of an imminent riot. I've had promoters grab me and shake me and say, "Stop this show, it's on the verge of becoming a riot."
This footage from an early Germ show is rough as hell, even by today's standards. just love Darby's explanation on how they got the reputation.
How did you get the reputation that you have?
I guess we used to do stuff. I mean, back, you know, it was good to have that kind of reputation then, you know, but not anymore, because now we can't play anywhere.
They used to do stuff. Okay, Darby. When he talks about self-mutilation, it's definitely shocking. He used to do it because it would keep him from being bored? That kind of language is certainly red flag type language.
Tell me, how is it that you're always getting hurt?
Well, first I did it on purpose,
Yeah.
to keep from being bored.
It's even more shocking how calm their manager is just describing this as a performance style.
He's come out of shows with huge scrapes and scratches and claw marks all over him and just pouring blood, but it always looks a lot worse than it is.
Another telling moment happens when Darby is asked why he gets so loaded on stage. His answer of it being too scary up there is a real window into the genuine soul of the man born Jean-Paul Bean.
Why do you get so loaded to perform?
Because that way I don't feel myself getting hurt. I mean, it's scary out there.
He gets vulnerable while cooking breakfast and opens up as to why it's so scary.
No, it's real scary, like, because when we play, we're right down there in the audience, and there's lots of creeps out there. And there's lots of people that have grudges against us now, too. And so if I didn't get loaded, I wouldn't be able to do it.
But when he's all fricked up, he can just throw his body into that sea full of creeps and grudge holders. Darby was a tornado of brutality, and the microphone was just kind of a suggested prop.
Well, we've tried everything to get him to do that. I've
To do what?
talked to him. To sing into the mic. It's just like almost like the enemy or something. Stay away from it at all costs, it seems.
And he's just so casual when he's asked about it. It doesn't even register in his brain that it's a thing.
So tell me why you don't sing into the mic, Darby.
Just don't pay attention. I'm too loaded.
The manager goes on to explain that, yeah, of course they're gonna break stuff.
Things get broken, monitors, mics, but you kind of have to expect that if you hire an energetic young band.
You know exactly the members of this band. You know very well that they were never just some energetic young band.
Darby, pick up the mic. The mic!
Darby Crash's destructive approach to life would be what inspires people in the scene to do the exact opposite.
What kind of drugs do you take when you're on stage?
Anything. Usually I do speed or something, and then that gets too nervous, so I do some kind of downers, and I start drinking.
Darby's substance abuse was so extreme it was almost cartoonish.
Damn it, somebody give me a beer. A beer, damn it, a beer.
I don't know if this is the kind of band that in the moment I would want to manage, but like, hell yeah, the historical clout surely makes up for it. And every day I would be contemplating if the cred was worth all the stress. Not being able to get gigs, babysitting people that are doing extremely hard drugs. They can't play their instruments, there's abuse everywhere. It's a full-time job for what cannot be full-time pay. If I were her, I'd probably answer this next question the exact same way.
Do you feel like you want to quit sometimes?
Oh yes, almost all the time.
In those clips, there was no glimpse of Darby Crash, the well-spoken cult leader. He was obliviously meandering through life with this vague, fake deep 5-year plan in his back pocket. He didn't know the actual meaning of fascism or what it actually took to get there, nor did he even really care about it. He was so concerned on what he was doing. He was a mentally ill kid in a band that struggled to find gigs because of behavioral issues. That's not to say people didn't gravitate towards him, because god damn it, they did. Big time. His charisma wasn't that of a cult leader. He was the personification of pure pandemonium. He lived it. He was it. Through and through thick and thin, for better and definitely for worse. This was not a gimmick, and I didn't even tell you the story of the dead painter. On December 7th, 1980, Darby Crash would fulfill his 5-year plan. The average Joe's 5-year plan would be to own a home. Darby Crash's would be to own the entire scene. in his mind, he thought his death would dictate what would go on in the genre for the rest of time. And you know what? Looking back over the last 40 years, he may have had a point. I will never encourage doing what he did. If you have those feelings, you have to reach out for help. But the Germs took punk and actually made it punk. They took it from the quaint small boutiques of London, England, into real, legitimate emergency rooms. To some, Derby represents how to stick to your punk-ass code of ethics. While others, it's a cautionary tale on what to avoid at all costs when navigating through the scene. After his death, the band broke up. Pat Smear was the guy who started the Germs with Darby Crash, and after that, he went on to play with Nirvana. I don't know, maybe you heard of them. And maybe after that, he went on to play with his other band called the Foo Fighters. This is where the story should end. This is where I should be saying, okay, until my next upload, but that unfortunately is not the case. Because in 2005, they cast this Shane West guy, a Hollywood-ass actor, to play Darby in an upcoming biopic. That one that I was talking about at the beginning of this video. And if that wasn't bad enough, they decided to reform the band with an actor playing the role of Darby Crash. It started off as kind of just this fun thing to do at a rap party for the film, but then they got it in their mind to record material and go on tour. They even played Warped Tour 2 times, 2006 and 2008. You know why not 2007? Because that's when this god-awful film came out. That's right, in 2007, after apparently 17 years of production, this pail of pig cum is summoned into reality. And you might be thinking, yo, Dan, chill out, that's kinda cool. And no, it's not. You're dumb, you're stupid, you're wrong. This isn't Motley Crue. If this was Motley Crue and they hired a less fat version of, what was his name, Vince Neil, to come in and be Motley Crue, then that's fine. But this is the Germs. They actually stood for something. They actually matter. One of the most tragic things of all was after this 5-year plan, it looked like, yes, Darby, you did this to become a legend, and goddammit, you're gonna be a legend. But then the next day, on December 8th, 1980, you know who goes and dies? John Lennon, and he takes all the steam away from Darby and just totally upstages him. So even after that all happened, the band still let this film come out. They commodified Darby Crash and turned it into a Hollywood gong show. Fat Mike and Jello Biafra, among others, were outspoken on how shitty this was. And it might have been okay, we might have been able to forgive it all if the film didn't suck so much. Yeah, the actor could kind of look like Darby Crash, and for a minute you'd be like, whoa, Darby Crash is alive again, and that's just so fucked up. It's poetic how atrocious it is. An actor playing a punk legend in that legend's old band while simultaneously destroying everything he built with the people he built it with. It's a nuanced drama that Shakespeare couldn't even wrap his head around. That one record they put out with Darby Crash, called GI with the big blue circle on the front, cannot be called tight. Their chaotic energy is captured and the songwriting shines because of Joan Jett's production on this thing. And even though the Germs' legacy have this big asterisk, at least we'll always have this record and the footage from the decline of Western civilization. Darby Crash has earned his spot at the top of the punk rock food chain.